Hello everyone, Sana here and welcome back to another episode of Bugrock of the Week. Today we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of issues having to do with the crossbow and shields in the Bedrock edition of Minecraft. I'm a little bit late to this party, but better late than never, am I right? So there's not too many massive issues with these two new combat weapons. However, there are a bunch of little issues and weird issues, as is kind of the case normally with the Bedrock edition of Minecraft. Always just so many little things, so I figured I'd round them up all into one video and show them to you guys, so hopefully you guys do enjoy. If you haven't seen the previous episode of Bugrock of the Week, that is where we check out a crazy lightning bug that basically allows you to get infinite lightning just from throwing one loyalty trident at a player. It kind of gets stuck in place and then just starts repeat summoning lightning. It's honestly pretty awesome looking. It's super dangerous for anyone actually in survival without some massive effects on them, but it's also just super cool looking. So check it out if you're interested. Links are where you would expect them to be, but without further ado, let's hop into this episode, shall we? So firstly, we're going to go ahead and take a look at crossbow issues, and then later on in this episode, we'll also take a look at issues with the shield as well. So there are quite a few issues with crossbows and tipped arrows are pretty much the thing that make crossbows actually good, especially with multi-shot, because of course when you shoot them with multi-shot you get 3 of them, so it's kind of like 3 for the price of 1. Super nice, especially with the damage arrows. However, it's a little bit inconsistent when you're hitting mobs. So for instance, mobs like creepers and slimes and pandas will only ever absorb 1 of the arrows if you shoot them. So as you can see, 2 of the arrows are passing right through that creeper. It's not an issue of hitbox either, because as you can see, the big giant fluffy panda still lets through 2 of the arrows. So as you can see, this is even an issue with the big slimes as well. We can stand right in front of that guy, shoot a multi-shot arrow, and 2 of them pass right through it. And by the way, these things are great for crowd control on slimes. So as you saw with those other mobs, the 2 arrows always went past the mob. However, with these guys, 1 arrow will always go past. It's very strange and pretty inconsistent. So we can try that with all of these undead guys. And as you can see, 1 arrow always goes past. It doesn't matter really at what range you shoot them at. Even point blank, okay, that guy's a little bit too small. Even point blank, like 1 arrow will always get past. It's very strange and pretty inconsistent. So there's even some issues with shulkers as well. Normally when you shoot a shulker with an arrow, the arrow will bounce off of them, and it actually bounces off like extremely far on Bedrock, which I'm not sure if it's intentional, but it's really far. But as you can see with the multi-shot enchantment and using tipped arrows, typically what will happen is all 3 of them will pass right through the shulker, as you can see right there. So you can actually pick that up and reuse that central arrow. So we can demonstrate this in survival as well. Sneak around the corner, shoot the guy, and as you can see, we have all 3 of our arrows. We can even pick that back up, and we didn't use a single arrow to kill that guy and get the experience from him. So it only really works when their shells are closed. Of course, when they're open, things act normally, but it's only an issue when they're closed. So there's also some issues with the piercing crossbow and shulkers as well. So normally when they are closed, the arrow will bounce off of them, as you can see there. Sometimes it's a little bit funky if they're just opening or just closing, but for the most part, it works as intended. So if you shoot the block underneath them as they are closed, as you can see, the arrow does not pop off, and the arrow is actually right in there, as you can see. So next time that guy opens up, he's actually going to take damage from that arrow, and he's basically just going to keep taking damage from that arrow for a little while. And as you can see, the arrow has now despawned or died or something, so he's not going to completely die from it, but he will take some additional hits of damage. So there's 2 small issues with the actual tipped arrows themselves, having to do with the particles. So as you can see, the particles are higher than they should be, and they kind of unrender depending on what is behind them. But we can also see this when the arrow is vertical as well. The particles are just not quite where they should be. Pretty small issue, but something I noticed when I was recording. Alright, so time to move on to shields and all the issues that they have. So the first one is something that I've covered before, but we may as as well cover it again in this video, drum up a little bit extra support for it. So this is probably like the biggest one with shields. Basically, if you are throwing a loyalty trident at a player who is blocking, the trident will hit the shield, deal damage to you, the person who's throwing the trident, and then the loyalty will go to the person who is blocking. So you'll basically get dealt damage, get knockback, and lose your trident all at the same time. It's kind of terrible, and it basically gives your opponent an extra trident to throw right back at you and hit you with. Not a very good one at all. Definitely needs to be fixed. The next one is a pretty small graphical bug, but if you are crouching and then you shoot an arrow, your shield will basically go right up above your head, and it just looked kind of weird. Like, it's not raining arrows right now. We don't need to block up there. And it's just kind of a weird one. So the next one is kind of major, as it actually duplicates your shields when you die. So I know that this one happens on realms and in single player as well, as I've seen it happen on my realm and on Truly Bedrock as well, but I have not been able to reproduce it. So I'm not entirely sure how it happens, but typically when you die and you have a shield in your offhand, you will respawn with that same shield in your offhand. So you'll basically just duplicate shields, even if they have enchantments on them or what have you, you'll just get a duplicate shield because that's how duplication works. So yeah, again, not entirely sure how to reproduce this one, but I know it's a thing that exists. So Endermen have a slight issue with shields as well. If we go ahead and start blocking and then just look at that guy, as you can see, he basically attacks us once and then just stops dead in his tracks. Normally what they do is they will keep on attacking you and eventually break your shield if you let them attack you long enough. But on Bedrock, they just kind of sometimes run circles around you like this guy is now doing, or they'll just completely stand still. So he's totally a smart individual. He knows how the world works. And what we can actually do is even stop blocking as well, and he still doesn't realize it. So he's totally just hanging out there. Yeah, this is kind of weird. I don't know if I trust this at all. These guys do way too much damage. Boop. So I'm not sure how well this last one's gonna show up on YouTube, but basically the Unenchanted Shield is a light in item frames. So this is kind of like a Bedrock feature. If you have a light source or anything that is enchanted, it will typically be light even if it is dark. So that's just kind of how it goes, but the Unenchanted Shield is still got that bright effect to it, and this can actually make for some kind of cool builds, maybe like some evil eyes in a dark cave or just something cool in general. You guys are always way more creative than I am, so maybe you guys can find some cool uses for this. So that is going to do it for this episode of Bugrock of the Week. Again, nothing too major this week, but next week we're going to be covering the 1.11 update, and my oh my, I'm sure there's going to be some very juicy bugs in that update as per usual, so keep your eyes peeled for that episode of Bugrock of the Week. But if you did enjoy this episode, then of course be sure to upvote the bug reports that are down in the description of the video. Upvoting the bug reports and leaving a comment on them, putting some additional information is really how we get these bugs fixed in this game. So thank you all very much for the support on the bug tracker as always. If you did actually enjoy the video itself, then of course be sure to leave a like. Helps out the video, helps out the channel in general. Subscribe so you guys don't miss the next episode, and I will see you down in the comment section and in the next one. Thank you again for watching, and then there was silence.